All right, so it's going to be loud because the kids are just going stir crazy, and the dog is all in on it too. So he likes chasing them around and barking at them, and the kids love to be chased by the dog. So it's going to be a little loud, but regardless, we're going to be able to make it through this, right? Make sure you join our Discord. It's going to be down in the description box below. It has a lot of different topics that we talk about. Sometimes folks go on there just to get a laugh because we post some funny memes. Sometimes I post things that's going on in Tacoma because sometimes Tacoma news will just be interesting. So folks have a resource to go to versus me telling people about it. And then sometimes people ask questions. There is an Ask HershNoeie section on there, and someone asked a very good question. And it's one of those that is a good one. It actually sparked a conversation of what other folks thought and advice and different things like that. So first off, I have to say to the person that posted this question, it takes a lot of guts to post anything to begin with, but to also seek advice and help for something like this is is not something not everybody can do. So it takes a lot of guts to do that. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that a lot of times people will post things, and it's really important to understand that I've seen a lot. I've been through a lot. And this is something that's similar but different than what I've been through. So I'm going to post this question. It's an Ask HershNoeie, but also I'm going to talk about what my circumstance was and just kind of this overall, my opinion overall, right? So this Ask HershNoeie is staying together for the kids worth it? When my fiance told me she wanted to be polyamorous, I debated staying with her even though I saw it as a moral issue. Now, of course, the conversation goes into more detail as there's a few people on our Discord that are going back and forth and offering their opinion and advice and just support and different things. So it's really cool. Let me first say that when I was younger, not much younger, but when I was younger, I was in my late 20s. I got divorced, and not long after divorce, I was pretty shallow, right? I dated for a while nothing but model chicks. And I'm not saying that to brag, but these were people who literally were truly models, right? Noelle knows one of them. And so that was what I did. And this one chick that I dated was very, very pretty, very nice overall. And it seemed like I was kind of in the friend zone, like off the bat. Like when we went on dates and stuff, it just kind of seemed kind of off. But I thought maybe that's just her personality, whatever, whatever. And I would say probably, and nothing never happened physical like that with her and I, right? Which was also kind of different. But I'm like, okay, trying to be a gentleman, you know. And later on, we go out and we were talking and everything, and so she's like, why don't you come back to my place? And so I'm thinking, yeah, yeah, right. So I go to her place, and I'm sitting on the couch just chilling, and I'm happy, and I'm thinking something's gonna happen. Nothing happens. We're watching TV, and I'm trying, nothing's happening. So she told me that, do I know what polyamorous is? And I said, no. And she's like, well, that's kind of what I think I am. I'm not for certain. She's like, but that's what I think I am. And so she explained to me that it's, being able to be in love with more than one person and actively be a part of those relationships. And everyone kind of is knowing about each other and that type of thing. Just because she's involved with these people doesn't mean that I have to be involved with them, but maybe so. And I can have people that I'm involved with, but at the end of the day, her and I are together. It was, to me, I'm like, huh? You know what I mean? Like, we're talking long term. We're not talking like just a little bit of time. So I was like, what? So she's like, yeah, I'm a part of a meetup group. This was in Indianapolis. I'm a part of a meetup group, and you can come to it to get more information. My friend runs it. So I go to this meetup group, and the guy that's her friend, to me, was just scuzzy looking. That's just my opinion. I was like, ew. And I go in there, and she's really and truly the best looking one in the entire group of 15 people. And I'm not just, guys and girls, by far the best looking one out of everybody in that entire group, right? And I think anyone that was looking at that situation could probably easily say that. There was a lady in there who was like in her 60s, had to be. And the guy that's her friend was telling me why don't you sit right there, right next to this old lady? And the chick that I was dating was sitting kind of a couple of seats away. Now, these were open seats, right? Because around the table, everything was kind of filled in except for those areas. Now, whether that was planned or not, don't know. I don't think so. But I found it interesting that he wanted me to sit right next to the old lady. Well, this old lady, who is really a grandma, she looked like a grandma, was highly flirtatious, highly talking about all types of stuff. It was shocking. Sure, I know older people have a life, but that's not what I was expecting. And really just trying to rub and touch on me and this, that, and the other. I'm like, So I'm looking at chick, and she could tell that I'm uncomfortable, but she finds it kind of funny. So dude was basically taking some shots, I feel, at me a little bit. I can't remember, but I just remember I didn't like him. So later on, and we're talking several weeks later, I just can't with this chick. So we break up. And so, but I was debating whether I should go back with her or not, because I'm like, she's pretty. She's not 100% on board with the whole polyamory thing. So I talked to old boy, because that's her best friend, or close friend, whatever it was. And he was basically trying to find every way for me not to be with this chick. Trying to talk everything down, trying to basically be just very hyper aggressive. And at the end of the day, more than likely, her and this nasty dude were either doing something together, or he was hoping that he could do something with her, right? Needless to say, none of that was my cup of tea. I moved on and found a lot better, but it was not my cup of tea. This was probably one of the very first relationships I had gotten into after being divorced. So I get what you're saying, but when you have kids with someone, it's a completely different thing. You can't just, you can walk away from the person, but you're still attached to them in a way because of the kids, right? Is staying together for the kids worth it? No, because I'm a product of a divorced household. My mom and dad were married for 30-something years. And supposedly my dad cheated, my mom left, they split up. They were trying to get back together, and boom, I happened. That's the reason why there's a 14-year age difference between me and my next sister in line, right? I was an uncle before I was born, because all of my sisters were, and I'm the only boy. My elder sister was already out of the house, had kids before I was even born. She was an adult. So, two of them were already adults, and the other one was 14 years older than me. So by the time I even knew what was going on, she was already an adult, right? So to me, I understand when people say, should I stay around for the kids, right? Because obviously having a mom and dad in the household is great. No matter how much a woman tries, no matter how much my mom tried, she couldn't be a man. She couldn't be a father to me, and vice versa. No matter how hard a man will try, he can never be a mom to a kid. Now, there will be people say, I don't need anybody. It's not true. You got to think of what it does to a kid, because a kid doesn't see it like that. They see it as that parent rejected me, that parent didn't love me, that parent didn't want me, why aren't they trying with me? For a kid, it's a whole different set of circumstances. It doesn't matter whether or not dude cheated, she cheated, this happened, that happened. For a lot of kids, they internalize and say, well, what's wrong with me? Why is it the other kids get to have their parents at the play, but I just have my dad or my mom or my whatever, right? So I get why some people are like, I don't know. But on the flip side of that, kids should not have to witness things that are not good for them. Abuse, violence, uh, you know, drugs, all types of stuff, being in and out. Kids need a routine. And if you have one parent that is kind of there, but then, nah, not really, then that's not good for a kid. So in those circumstances, there's many others. In those circumstances, then yeah, I would say, the kid not having both parents is a good thing, because you don't want a parent that's got a whole list of issues that are going to directly impact the quality of life for that kid. At the end of the day, it's about the children and their quality of life. Children should be able to live in a world, in my opinion, where they don't know, like my kids didn't know about violence. They didn't know that you can't trust every single person that walks around. They didn't know about racism and discrimination and hatred and all of the stuff that is out there. They didn't know about that until we told them. And they were like, what? Like, they were just shocked, right? They didn't know that people, went out there and did drugs and different, they just didn't know. And to me, that's how it should be. And it's for the parents to come in and say, here's some of the things in life that you have to watch out for, things that you don't want to do, these things do exist, et cetera, right? But for a kid to see it firsthand does tremendous damage. Tremendous. So staying together and having fights all the time or whatever, I don't think that's worth it for the kids, and it's definitely not worth it for you. If anything, it causes more problems. There's more in it. You can look through history. There's more people who have more issues staying together and things going extremely bad because they're trying to do it for the kids. So I wouldn't do that. The other thing is, too, in a situation like this, let's say you stay together and she lives a polyamorous life. Let's say she gets with a dude that is saying that he's polyamorous but is super possessive and doesn't like it. And then when she comes around you, there's a problem. You see what I'm saying? I steer clear of that type of thing. Now, that's not to say there aren't people who have a polyamorous life and they do it very well and everything's good. Yeah, sure. But that's what you signed up for, right? If someone goes into a relationship saying, this is who I am, and the other, like that group, there are people there who know where they stand. That's different. Or before you get into a relationship with someone and before several dates in, you're like, this is who I am. And if someone's like, cool, I've never done it, but let me see if I'm down with that. And that happens, cool. But after the fact, after having kids, and I don't know how early on you knew, but for someone to just bring it up and be like, hey, that's the life I'm living. And to say, you know what, maybe I should just deal with it. We got kids and stuff. I'm just going to deal with it and just be with her. I disagree. I don't think you should settle, because you're doing a disservice to yourself. You're doing a disservice to your kids. And really and truly, you're doing a disservice to that person too, because they've moved on with their life in a different direction. And even though you aren't that way, you're basically shortchanging everyone, because there's no way you can fake it to make it. It just for something like that, it just doesn't work. The other thing is you debated staying with her, even though you saw it as a moral issue. Here's the thing: if your morals, your values, your views, your beliefs are a certain way, and you feel like this is something that's not your thing, then it's not your thing. You see what I'm saying? When you try to change your beliefs just to be with someone, and you try to change your morals just to be with someone, a lot of times it collapses. And when it collapses, you're going to have a tremendous amount of resentment towards that person. I wouldn't be in this situation if it wasn't for you. Had I not did this, you see a lot of people who will move. I know of several people who move to a city away from where they met someone, let's say here in Tacoma, and then they move to Oklahoma City together because that person ends up moving it, or this is where they live, but they somehow met someone online who lives in Boston, so they moved to Boston to be with that person. To me, that's not a good thing to do, because when things start to frazzle, or if the relationship breaks up, then you're stuck in a place where you probably don't have a solid foundation. You don't have your friends, your family, things aren't familiar, et cetera, et cetera. It becomes very lonely. And so you're having to grieve in a place that's pretty foreign to you. I would never do that. In fact, when I was married, my ex, who at the time I was married to, wanted to move to San Francisco because that is where a lot of her family was. And I didn't want to do that. I felt like our relationship, even though I was married, I felt like our relationship was not strong enough to where I would end up going to one of the most expensive cities in the country. And if we break up, I'd be screwed because I couldn't afford at the time. I couldn't afford San Francisco prices. I mean, heck, I can't even afford San Francisco prices now. So it's like, why would I take that risk? If her and I were to divorce at that time, she could just easily move in with her family. Her family her family had money. She was from Hong Kong. Her dad owned a leather business where he traveled all over the world. He had plenty of money. He paid for all of his kids to go to college in the U.S. He was a millionaire. Her aunt, her dad's sister, husband owned several Burger Kings in San Francisco, and their house in San Francisco was a two-story house. Down below was the exact footprint of up above, and you had a kitchen and bedrooms, and up above you had the same thing. You just go up the stairs, so you could easily, and that's kind of common there in San Francisco, but you could easily live down in the bottom part and pay rent. So I knew, and their house was paid off. It was a nice house. So I knew that if something happened to me, I would have to pretty much find my way back home. The odds were stacked against me in every aspect. My family didn't have a whole lot of money. So why would I put myself in that particular circumstance knowing that we're not super solid? Now, if that was Noelle, yeah, all day long I would have moved wherever. And so I just didn't do it. The funny thing, not so much funny, but Noelle, when I was in Indiana where I met Noelle, and my job wanted to transfer me to Albuquerque, I told her about it, and my biggest thing was not moving to Albuquerque with Noelle and the distance and being away from everything. I felt like, I don't know if I'm going to like Albuquerque. That was my biggest thing. Like, oh, I don't know about this place. But it was never about, can her and I make it together? That never entered into my mind. I was for certain on that. So it was easy, just pick up and move. With her, once she said, yeah, I think we should do it, I was like, okay, cool. Never thought once about if we were to split up. Same thing when we went to Seattle. I was down. As soon as she said, I applied for a job up there, I got an interview, I said, I'm good. I'm ready. It was never a concern. I can live anywhere on the planet with Noelle because, it just made it, in my head, it was clear. But with my ex, it was never clear. And I was married to her for almost 5 years. It was never at any point where I felt secure enough with her to do anything, even have kids, none of that. So to me, I think that your moral values are your moral values. Now, if they were wrong moral values like racism, bigotry, hatred, that type of thing, that's a different story. But if your values are, hey, I'm not really into the whole polyamorous thing. I don't really want my kids to see randoms walk throughout the door and the questions you have to hear from them and the answers that you're going to have to come up with as to explaining this. Now, again, some people live that lifestyle and that type of thing. That's cool. But when you're on a different side of the fence and this is not your lifestyle, it's hard to reconcile that. It just is. So to me personally, no, I wouldn't stay together for the kids. I would not have, just settled and said, let's do it, regardless of how I feel, because it's not going to work, right? It's just not going to work. So me personally, I think that living the lifestyle that you want to live and being with someone who's worth your time is by far more important. That was something that I learned later on. All these model chicks, no offense to super attractive people, but typically someone that's uber pretty are always typically single, or there's a lot of issues. I don't know of any, and I know a lot. I don't know of any of those people that and sometimes I'll spy, they're still single, right? I don't know of any super duper attractive person that stays in a long term relationship. It's more rare than what you think. And a lot of those people have a lot of self esteem issues too. And I learned that beauty will fade. And at the end of the day, as those people get older, that beauty fades, and the core of who they are is what you're going to have to be dealing with. I'd rather find someone who's average or what have you and have an amazing character so that whenever we're 80 years old, they still are an amazing person. None of these people, unless you're Sophia Loren, are going to be super pretty when they're in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. This ain't going to happen, typically, unless you're Angela Bassett. And you can be 60 and still look good. But anyway, most people aren't going to hold up like that. But you're at the end of the day, you're still dealing with who they were as a person, as a core of a person. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that, bouncing and dealing with things head on is a better way to go. You've in the Discord channel, a lot of people gave a lot of good advice, bounced a lot of different questions off of you. So they pretty much all the things they said, I would agree, and the things you said, I would agree with too, in that whole discussion. So anyhow, hope I answered your question. Best of luck to you, my friend. As I said, if you want to ever give me a call. We can chit chat. And make sure you all join our Discord channel. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.